Hello and welcome to Terrain Oddity. My name is Jay and today I'm going to be showing you how to make something like this, which essentially is tall, long grass for your miniature wargaming boards. It's basically scatter terrain that when you put it on a mat, a table or whatever, it'll just look like a section of tall/long grass. For games like Star Wars Legion at least, this would be like area cover, area terrain, light cover, and quite frankly it's hard to get that sometimes on a board. So these two options, this is obviously your grassy green mat field kind of thing, and this would be your desert version. Now, I would say that this desert one is not quite as bright as the camera is making it out to be. That is primarily just the lighting in the room, but you will need one key thing for this. But before we talk all about that, if at the end of this video you like the video, do consider pressing like, and if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please do so, as it really does help. Right, so for this, you really need one thing, one main material, and that is the faux fur or the fake fur. Now, I'll show you where I got it from in the UK. Big shout out to Red Beard Baron. Can't remember the exact name of the channel, do apologise, but he's done a lot of work with this kind of fake fur material. I always suggest you go check him out if you want to see like different kinds of stuff. I think he might have done a board on it, etc. But yeah, so where I got it from in the UK, I ordered it online. From Fabricland. Now, when I came onto this, they had black and like cream, and I was like, all right, that's all right, because I'm obviously going to make grass and desert. I was like, yeah, I could do that, but the desert one on the black would maybe be a little bit harder. On the cream, I was like, yeah, I could do both colours, but I'm going to really have to get the paint into that. And then I found this, which they call honey, and yeah, it's a really nice yellow colour on the picture. When I ordered this, it's very much like Donald Trump ginger-esque hair, but it's fine and it works perfectly fine. Reasonably priced. It's £12.59 for a metre of it, which is all you'll need if you're just doing scatter terrain. It is like £7 from delivery from here, so for 20 quid you'll have as much of this material as you could ever wish for. I'll put a link into that in the description below if you're in the UK. In the US, I'll try and find a supplier, but don't quote me too much on that. Just like a fabric store will be fine. Now, this fake fur, as we'll get into the actual tutorial. This fake fur, as I said, I got a big, massive sheet. Do keep in mind that when you are using this stuff, a lot of the hair comes off. It's very, very messy, and the materials all you're going to need is some paints, a pair of scissors, and I think that might be about it. A comb. You definitely need a comb, or just something to brush in the paint with. So first things first, we're just going to cut the shape of the terrain that we want. Don't make it a perfect circle, don't make it a perfect oval, just a naturalish looking rough area. Now, you could, if you wanted, try and make like wheat fields or what have you in perfect squares, but I'm going for just like tall grass. So this honey color though is actually pretty decent for what I wanted, as it lets me darken it up with the greens and still keep a bit of the yellow in, which gives it a like really nice green, dark green, light green, yellowy kind of patch of grass. And for the desert colors, well, obviously it's quite light and deserty anyway, so just like a bit of like buff titanium is all I really used in it. But yeah, so you cut your shape. There's no rhyme or reason to it, just whatever shape you want. And depending on the length of your fur, you're almost certainly going to have to cut it down into a more appropriate length. So I just brushed it all up with the comb and then just trimmed it with a pair of scissors. Now, you could shave it if you wanted to, but you might have to buy a buzz shaver or something if you want to do that. For this size of terrain, we really only just need the scissors. Just trim it down to the right size. It doesn't take very long, but again, it is quite messy, and even when you've finished, some hair will still come off because it's just inevitable. The one thing I will say is when you are trimming it down, because if you don't, because of the way that you've cut the terrain piece area, you'll often have some of the hairs that are perfectly straight. And we don't really want that, so you want to get in like a barber. Have you ever seen a barber? They're like just doing little bits off here, little bits off there. You just want to get in there and break up those straight edges when you're cutting it off. Now, you probably won't notice once all the paint's on, etc., but just while you're doing this, do that. So just brush it up, get it to the desired length. The desired length depends on the scale that you're using this for. I'm using this for like Star Wars Legion 28-32mm kind of thing, so I couldn't give you a rougher estimate. Just get your miniature and just keep putting it on until you're happy with it. Now, obviously you want it to be like tall grass, so you obviously want it to be a little bit longer than maybe comfortable, because you need it to be somewhat like deep, but whatever you're comfortable with, just go with that amount. And then really once you've trimmed it down, all we're going to do is put on the paint. Now for the greens, we'll start off with the greens, then we'll do the desert. For the greens, I use airbrush paints, and I don't airbrush it on. I'm going to just whack it on and then brush it on with the comb. But I think it's Game Model Air, and I think it's pale green is for my highlight color, and olive green was my main like dark green color. And all you're going to do is get your first color of paint and splotch it on. But before we do that, there is an optional step. If you've got a material like this material, it's got a white backing. Now this white backing can show through at the edges. If you have a spray paint available for the colour you want, like a green or a deserty colour, then I do recommend taking your piece and just spraying the edges. Now you don't want to get too much of the grass because the spray paint can be really sticky, but just spray the edges to try and get rid of that white border. Now it's not, you don't have to do that, and you can actually just do it with normal paint by, you know, going around the edge with maybe like maybe a brush or a sponge or something and just dabbing it on the edges. But I just wanted to say it's a good time now before you start. And if you do spray the edges, go straight in with the comb to try and break it up, because as I said, it is quite sticky. But in this case, I think I sprayed mine with a brown. But you don't have to, as I said, because obviously I wanted brown to blend in with the dirt. And then a couple of splotches of the olive green, couple of splotches of the pale green, and you just want to get straight in there with your comb. Sorry, I don't know if a brush would work. A comb, and you basically just want to spread it out. It's as simple as that. You want to cover it in. It's like you're painting it with the comb. Now, how intense you go depends on what colour you've got. If you've got like my yellowy colour here, my honey, then I actually wanted some of the original yellow to still be showing a little bit, but you can probably see on the right, if I'm showing you the right video, that I did one where there's almost no yellow in it. It's literally just the dark green and the light green, and they both work perfectly fine. You just spread it through. I recommend not adding water to these. I think the airbrush paints are like pretty damn perfect consistency, but what I found was if I added a bit of water to the paint whilst it was on the material, so it would clump up a little bit of the tufts of the grass, which would be quite hard to then comb through and comb it out. Now you might be able to, if you've got normal paint, just maybe mix a little bit of water in beforehand and then do it. But really, I just go with pure paint and just comb it through, and it'll look perfectly fine. Once you've actually got the colour exactly the way you want, I would maybe try and have a highlight colour, so your lightest colour, to try and put a little bit on just the edges, so like just little small drops all the way around it, like all in random splotches, whacking it on, as I always say, and then just sort of brush it, but maybe not as much as you normally would, just because you want to have like your dark colours at the bottom and your highlights at the top. Obviously this technique doesn't really allow you to do that very easily, but it's worth it if you can try and do it, do it. So that's it for the grass. Like really, once you've done it, you can trim it down if you've got really long pieces or really short pieces or really straight pieces. You can trim it down and make sure your guy sits on it flat, because now that you've got it, now that it's a bit tougher, a bit thicker, a bit solid, your models might not fit on it as easily. But that's it really for the grass one. And then moving on to the desert, it's literally the same thing. Now initially I was using flesh coloured tones because Red Baron, he recommended that, but I was finding that with my mustardy, orangey kind of coloured fur that I already had, that it was sort of giving me, it was sort of darker, and it didn't really go well with my desert mat. But do keep in mind that apparently flesh coloured tones are really quite good, and I did actually use a bit of flesh coloured tones as sort of like my second colour, but my main colour was actually buff titanium, just the acrylic paint, the standard acrylic buff titanium, which possibly why it looked a bit bright at the start of this video, but ultimately it blends pretty nicely in with the desert terrain the desert mat I already have, and it's literally the same technique. So like you just put in your paints and comb it through as much as you can. You want to comb it quite heavily on both of them. You don't want to just like sort of do a half-assed it kind of job. You really want to comb it through. And you can trim off the edges, trim off the bit, if your terrain's a funky shape, like sometimes I think mine was, like you just cut off an edge and then put some more paint on it so you've covered your the white bit of the foot of the material underneath, and yeah, you just comb it through. And buff titanium with that mustardy colour really had a nice look for me. You could use a bit of white for the desert one, just on the edges if you really want your highlights, like I talked about for the grass one, but you don't really have to. Trim it all down and you're pretty much done. that is literally it, but it's going to look very nice on the table. And as I said, that's pretty much it done. I've done 2 grass ones and 2 desert ones, and I bought a 2 meter length of it. I think it was like 2 meters by 2 meters, something like that. And quite frankly, I may even make an entire board out of it. I'm not sure what color. I really want to make a grass one, but I would also really. There's a picture of a guy called Signal, and he makes like mats out of this. Well, not this kind of stuff. He probably does it better than I do. But I was thinking about making an entire mat out of it for some battle reports, and it's like tempting. And it only cost me like £30 for the, and I had enough for an entire table and scatter terrain. So cost-wise, this isn't very expensive, and I think aesthetically, I think it's fantastic. I mean, I'm going to show you pictures, but this stuff really looks like grass. Like, it really looks like what it's supposed to look like, and I think that's brilliant, really, if I'm honest. And specifically for Star Wars Legion, area terrain that is light cover is quite difficult, sometimes quite difficult to get, especially one that's open. Well, there you have it, very aesthetically pleasing bit of terrain. I'm not saying that I've done a great job of it, but an aesthetically pleasing bit of terrain that accurately represents what it's supposed to be. Now, you could, if you wanted, base this on, instead of trying to paint the edges, either by getting paint on your finger and rubbing it on the edges, you could, or spraying it, you could put this on a base and then blend it in with dirt and grass if you want. I just thought, I like it being just defined by this in itself. For some reason, I'm against basing the terrain as much as I can, but sometimes it needs doing. But just keep in mind, you could obviously put that on, a bit of EPVC or something, and away you would go. All in all, pretty simple, pretty simple, pretty effective, pretty nice, I think. A bit messy. When you are rubbing this in with your comb, you can wear gloves. You can also use your fingers to mix it in instead of just the comb, which you'll obviously notice in the video. I have paint everywhere, and you could wear gloves, but I'd just rather wash my hands at the end of it. Get my hands dirty, whack it on. And whack it on. Somebody said whack it on in one of the comments, and now I can't think about it. And there will eventually be a t-shirt for whack it on, I imagine. Other than that, if you like this video, do like. If you're not subscribed and you want to see more terrain overall, not just Star Wars Legion, but overall, hit subscribe. That's what I'm doing. Generally with cheapish materials, you could just do you could use static grass if you wanted on a base, but this stuff is its own specific kind of look. So if you like the video, I already said that. Goodbye, have a beautiful day, and goodbye.